introduction video. So, day whatever, I don't know, 5? Day 5 of writing, about to begin. I'm gonna do a little bit of research about a certain place in the book, and then I'm going to just jump in with a writing prompt so that I can kind of, I don't know, get in the mood, get the right setting. The writing prompt will be, and how I'm choosing to do this, is in the book, you have your characters going to a new place. Oh, like a whole new place. Like, whoa, what is this? Whether it's like inside of a city, a building, a country, a planet, whatever. A whole new area for your character. I'm thinking, well, before I really get into their journey in that area, first of all, let me familiarize myself with the area. But then second, let us kind of explore the big story going on, if you understand me. Let us kind of just real quick explore what's going on in the grand scheme of things when it comes to like the motivations of the protagonist, antagonist, and what's the big bad thing going on in this area. Like, if I'm going to write, as an example, the area like Merry and Pippin and Fangorn Forest, well, let me familiarize myself with Fangorn Forest, the Ents, but like real quick, the writing prompt is, what's Sauron doing around that area? And so that's what I'd be writing, like, oh, he's probably tearing trees down for his, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's what I'm doing right now. Let's just get ourselves immersed into the area before we start writing. And then we'll start writing, and then we'll see where it goes. So, I'll let you know how that happens. Drawing to a close on day 5. What? Sorry. Oh, what do we need to talk about? Well, let me tell you this. I counted them up. So I just finished day 5 of writing. Okay, remember I said I'm writing 2 days a week, and I've only been doing this since Halloween, and today is 11/14. Well, you're 43 pages in. I kind of lost track of it there. I didn't really pay, you don't really pay attention to it. Here's one thing that I have been noticing though, however. It's hard to stop. It's hard to know, like, because I did 8 pages today again, and I was just like, I still feel like, well, I probably should just kind of keep going, right? And maybe I could. We'll see. It's only 3:34 p.m. Why not? I kind of got a later start to this, though. I wrote a little bit. It was weird. It was such a weird time. So I had to get up at 4 a.m. I had to run to work, which is like 25 minutes away, write a fucking order, and go home. It took me about 35 minutes, and I came home. I got here a little bit after 5:15, right? So fucking gay. But whatever, my boss is on vacation, no one's there due to the grocery order. Oh, D-Ray's got to run in there. Now, after that I came home and I don't know, my wife left for work, and then I was just like, alright, cool, I got the house to myself, got the cats, just hang out. And I was like, let's try writing a little bit. And I wrote about 2 pages, or almost 3. And I was really, like, it was hard to get it out. It was like, this sucks. Like, I don't know. And I just was kind of reading it, and I don't know. Something I didn't like about it. I debated, like, should I rewrite it? Should I give it a restart? I don't know. And so I read it a little bit, and I'm like, I don't know. Let's just go with it, and let's roll. And I did, and it can be interesting. I'm just nervous at the way that it's going. Like, I'm like, I don't know if I'm revealing too much or too little. Don't quite know. But we ended up rounding it out to 8 pages. It's I don't know, man. It's tough. It really is. it's so crazy just to kind of to dwell on all this and try to discover this story hiding within me, you know what I mean? But it's getting really, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of cool. Like, my last book was 260 pages, like front and back, on this size paper. You know, 12-point font, right? I don't know, whatever the natural font is on the Word document. I don't touch margins and all that. I just let it be where it is. It's crazy. It really is. I can't believe how far in we're getting. Like, by this point, what did I say, 43? I've forgotten already. That's when my book was really started to kind of kick in. Book 1. Book 2, it's going to really start kicking in again. I don't know what it is about me and 50 pages, but I need at least 50 to set the scene. Just like, hold on, give me a minute to get my bearings here. I don't know, man. It's so crazy. It really is. It's trying to unravel all this shit. I'm trying to discover, you know, this place. And because my heroes are in a new land. Both of them are. Like, perspectives, at least. And so it's quite a bit to try to, like... You think you know, right? Like, I have this report of one realm. And it's like, you know, 6 pages. And I have another report of the other realm, and that's about 10 pages. And it's like, okay, like, in those 10 pages, I try to give a little backstory of who lives there, what happened, what's some of the major history events, what are the name of the kings, what are the name of the realms, all this and that. But then you just, like, start getting into the mundane, and I find there's always this separation between, like, the city that you live in and the people that live in the city. You know what I mean? If you were to describe where I live in Adrian and you give a synopsis of it and you talk about the history and what this and that happened, that's cute and all. But when you have to start writing perspective of someone that lives on Front Street in the middle of Adrian, Michigan, it's just kind of like, that doesn't mean anything anymore. It's cute, but we're talking about a low income area. Now we're talking about a certain group of people that, you know, in some major sense, the events of the city's creation had nothing to do with these people. You know, we're far removed from that. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like, you could talk about where you live and all this cool stuff and who were the mayors of that city and what were the major economic this and that and what kind of jobs are there and, you know, what happened throughout history? What did they do during this time? What did they do during that time? Who are the major families, these rich families in this area? What are the things that came out of this town and blah, blah, blah. All that's cool, right? You know, how many men went to each war and, like, what was the crime like, blah, blah, blah. You do that and you're like, okay, you have a sense of that town that you live in. But then, it's like, okay, you got all that? Now just write a perspective of this one guy that lives on Gulf Street. And, like, all that's out the window. It's like, I mean, some of it matters because the layout of the town matters. And we could talk about how his parents got there and shit. But at the end of the day, that's a whole separate thing. You're just in there. You can kind of give cute little details of, like, yeah, this street was constructed in 1835 due to high demand of, you know, population increase and blah, blah, blah. Sure, you can do that. You can snipe that in there. But does the guy that's living there, who's on welfare, let's pretend, and is struggling because of the woman of his child left him because he was a piece of shit, and then now it's like, does any of that matter? Not really. See, it's like, that's what can be difficult. It's fine and dandy creating the world, but then when you start getting inside of it and trying to unravel a story, it's all out the window. You know what I mean? That can be the thing that will halt you, right? And what's the most important thing is, like, what am I trying to tell the story for? You gotta always, it's hard to do sometimes, you know, to keep that like a mantra in your head, like, what am I doing this for? What am I doing this for? What am I doing this for? What's the point of his story? What's supposed to happen to him? Blah, blah, blah. You can, over time, you could actually forget that, you know, or like sometimes you could start seeing a new story coming. Like, you know, you have this objective and then you're treading through and you're like, wait a minute, like that objective doesn't seem feasible anymore. We have a new objective. That can happen a lot. And it comes down, at the end of the day, it comes down to, what are you writing for? Also, who are you writing for? For me, what am I writing for is probably the question I ask myself the most. Why do you sit down and write? If you can answer that easily, I don't know, I almost don't trust that. It's like, I don't know, shit ain't that simple. You know, because I find myself sitting in this place here and I say, what is my book for? I don't even know if I can answer that question. Besides, I feel like I have to do it. That's about as far as I can tell you on that. I don't know any more than that. But like, what's the purpose of you writing it? I don't know, because I have to. Like, there's something in me that says we have to do this. I've talked about it before a lot. The book, you want to call it that? The story, I just consider the world now. The world was created first at fun, in kind of a really cool way. Like, yeah, this is fun. We can make our own like world building experience. We can construct our own whole world. And it turned into that, into like now where I'm sitting there going like, what the fuck am I doing this for? What is the point of this? Because every day it changes. I could tell you one day why I'm writing it. I could say, yeah, I'm writing it because this character. Or I can tell you what each character is supposed to do. What each character's, like, his story arc is. Or what his journey is going to be. The growth, blah, blah, blah. I could tell you that. But then, why am I doing that? I don't know if I can answer it. I don't know if anyone can, truly. I don't know. Maybe they can. Maybe I'm that fucking weirdo that's just like, yeah, I do things and I don't know why I do them. I really find myself a lot of the times at the whim of just the great unknown. I really feel pressed against it. There's so little logic that I implore in my daily life. So little. Most of the time whenever I do something, I'm doing it based on feel, not thought. Like, I should do this because of this, this, and that. It's mostly just like, this feels like I should feel it, so let's go feel things. Feeling and sensing, right? INFJ. I'm out there to feel and create things for no fucking reason whatsoever. I actually personally have a very hard time applying hardcore logic to my life and rigidity of things. Like, we're gonna do this and this is because of that and that. And I have a really hard time with that shit. I really do. In fact, that shit kind of turns me off. The minute I start to really break things down, I'm like, I don't know, I'm just kind of gay now. I kind of like mystery. I like the fact that I'm treading into this book with no clue what's going on, what's happening. You know, some days you may sit down and you might come up with like, okay, there's our story. That's what's going on. That's the kind of stuff we're going to be doing along the way. This will be that. That'll be this. But then, like, you figure this out. So this is my big thing. I'll figure out, like, okay, now I know what the Forgotten King's all about. Cool. But then I approach this new hurdle. It's like, okay, you figured that out, but like, what about the people? Like, oh. And I'll try to figure that out. I'm like, okay, now I figured that out. Okay, that's great and all, but what about the Titans? Okay, well, let's figure that out. And I do that. I'm like, that's fine and dandy, but then what about the Whisper? What about the Promise? What about all these other connections? Like, how is this all connected? And you can go off into each fucking area and like problem solve this event, problem solve that lore element, problem solve this high story part, problem solve that, and you have all these things, and it's so hard to collect them into one area and say, I'm going here to do this. Why? Because this reason, that reason, and that reason. Why is this the only way you can do it? And then it gets like that, right? It's really hard to plug up or to repave, if you want to call it that, the plot holes in your book, right? It's like, okay, well, if this was a thing, why don't they just do that? If that's the objective, why is this that? You know, all those things, you're sitting there, you're really trying to unravel elements. And you're trying to keep it all straight. It's so hard sometimes to keep elements straight. You know what's even harder? To do it with multiple people. Do you want to know how? Sometimes what you come up with together as a group, as two people, all of a sudden, when you're reacquainted with it, now you're not on the right track anymore. Do you want to know how that can happen? Listen to this. This one's just of me and Jacob discussing what OAPACE is, like what OAPACE is and what happened, right? I thought it was clear, but this is how it can get sometimes.
OAPACE is not outside of the realm of creation as it currently exists because that realm was closed by the Whisper. Whether or not the Whisper destroyed the thing beyond the door or simply closed it, the door is dead.
You do that.
OAPACE is in the sword.
The one that stabbed the King of the Wood?
The one that stabbed him, yeah.
No, the King of the Wood was stabbed.
That wasn't OAPACE? You're fucking with me right now. You're actively fucking with me.
No, I'm not. King of the Wood's separate.
Who the fuck is the King of the Woods?
It's the guy, his name's Preldog. I'm sorry. And he is the king of the Trinity Forest. He's the Lord of Anaku before the division.
Why the fuck did Tan stab him?
Because he was told to. Because in doing that, he held the ward that held the Forgotten King in his prison. The Forgotten King was trapped after he was captured after the Great War of Titan, or what the fuck I call it, the Titan Wars. He was captured because the Aeon, assumably, is a lot of the Titans disappear, but it's assumed that the Aeon lost. But I wouldn't say like lost, like all died. Clearly, they all didn't die. But he was captured, and that he was held in that place with the magic ward, and it was that king who had the highest power of his people, which is called the Dume, and that is the reason that he needed to be killed for some reason. What you said was the king needed to be freed from that to start this chain of events, and so in that stabbing, that moment is when Dove was able to take the king and somehow curse Beowulf. Remember that stuff?
Yeah.
That was that moment.
Okay. So where's the king?
The Preldog king?
No, OAPACE.
I don't know. I assumed he left out of the realm of the control of the Whisper.
But he can't.
But he can't. Why is that?
Because the door was closed when the Whisper
Right,
came
I don't know where that is. Like, not like left the realm, but like
he's hiding.
Yeah, like somewhere where the Whisper can't. But you were starting to get to it now.
Okay.
So there's nothing changed. Everything's fine.
Okay.
It's just this. It still could be the sword. It still could be because we could say how he held the king at bay. I never went into the detail. I never said like he held him by using this power. Like it was just he had the magical ward. If you kill the wizard that protects your palace, well, then the ward goes away.
So what? Oh, fucking jeez. Okay. Okay. So, for OAPACE made the Dizurine, supposedly, and mankind, and the bearded pygmy.
Yeah.
Made all these things.
With dope.
And he was an Aeon. He was an Aeon originally.
He's an Aeon. Dope. Sorry.
Dove is a Titan.
Dove is a Titan.
OAPACE's an Aeon. So, the thing that Opaque was struggling to create was a soul that could create other souls.
Yep.
Because that's not what the Anaku have.
No.
Which means, what we assumed before, what the fucking Supernians assume is that humanity is robbing
them of their life source, or whatever you want to call it.
Because their souls are getting turned into human souls.
Yes.
What if this is a fundamentally retarded assumption? Because that would still result in a limited amount of humans, and these ignorant fucking tree people can't do math and realize that the amount of humans who currently exist already far exceeds the amount of Anaku, and in fact, the first human soul was Opaque. And all at least Opaque human souls...
What if Opaque is hiding within people?
Or he's the original copy, and that the sword that slew Praeldug...
Yeah.
Opaque was tan. But his soul didn't have anywhere to go. That's what the stones were. Opaque's last fucking project that he never got to finish because he didn't realize the consequences of mortality. It wasn't a concept to him to be subject to the Whisper. He said, okay, well, I'll pass fucking powers onto my bloodline. They'll finish the human afterlife. And that's those stones connected to Mother Gaia. But he never made it to a stone. And
where is he?
Exactly.
Okay.
So Opaque's soul is either trapped in that sword, which would be like the last fucking thing he made in a panic, realizing what was going to happen.
And he gave it to Tanias to stab himself?
He gave it to Tanias, and then Tanias was tricked by Theis into killing
He
Praeldug.
needed to be freed. Okay. Because there's been 3 gods that have been in this scenario.
Yes.
Originally, Tanias was told by the Whisper to kill the king, to do this to the Forgotten King. Then it became, nope, Tanias was told by Dove to do it. And then it's like, well, no.
Well, Dove was the original.
Yeah, or whatever the order was.
Yeah, Dove, then it was Theis, the liar.
Theis.
Then it was the Whisper, the corrector.
But now, we're saying it might be Opaque?
Didn't tell him to, he just didn't, he's just, after he died. So if Opaque is Tan, the first of mankind,
Okay.
he died unaware of what would happen next. He gave up godhood to create the souls of man.
He died, in a sense, a god died to become a mortal man.
Yes.
And that mortal
Because
man
he had
was
made
Tan.
man. Yes.
Okay.
Because he made mankind, but mankind wasn't able to do shit of its own volition. So mankind learned to
They
sustain
were no
its-
different than the Anaku.
Yes.
When he was working with, Dove, he's like, okay, like, we want to make beings that can think for themselves. We want to have beings that have free will. We want beings that can make. And it's just not working. The Dizarine, sounds kind of fucked up, were like failed attempts.
Yes,
They're
they
great.
can kind of do it,
They were,
but only they're really good at doing what they're told to. They're fucking terrible at doing things for themselves.
yeah, that's why they're all gone now.
Yes.
But there's an ingredient that they had because that's the reason why Tan had to mix with one.
Yeah.
So there's something there. Now, what we're saying is that because of him and Dover making this, he's like, you basically, if you want them to have your power, it's going to have to come through you, not through your hands and you shape
You
it.
can't make it, you have to give it.
You have to go through the trial of like Jesus Christ. You have to die and be resurrected through them.
Yes.
So that's the idea. Is this the event?
And yes. That is the moment,
That's
mankind.
fucking Opaque right there then. Because
Yeah.
that's Tan, actually. This
Yes.
guy. So that's Opaque.
That is Quinlan seeing Tan, recognizing that he's Opaque and going, I'm hands off.
So this guy,
I no longer have the right.
he had to be reborn into life. And does that God omnipotently pass from generation to generation, or when Tan died, where does he go from that point?
This is where it gets complicated. So
You get it, right? Like, I bet none of that made any sense to you. Well, sometimes it feels like that to me too, and to Jacob. Like, Just totally trying to keep all this shit fucking straight. You know how hard it is to sit and write little guy perspective? Like, he was walking around in the city, blah, blah, blah. And you have all that. Like, okay, remember, like, tan is this. Remember, opaque is that. Remember this about the whisper. Remember that. Like, all these giant elements looming above. And it's like, again, all that. I was like, okay, we figured it out. But then I'm sitting here trying to figure out things like, well, how is Eris connected to all this? And then I'll sit and figure it out my own. I'm like, there we go, we got that problem solved. And then I'll have another question like, okay, well, what does Nahum have to do with all this? How is he connected? Or what does this new realm of Albadan have to do with any of this shit? What about Eek Beovak? What does he have to do with this too? And so you have to go off in these different fucking areas and rediscover all these fucking events going on. And it can get goddamn tiring to just to keep this all straight in your fucking head. It's like, I don't even know half the time. I don't even know, man. Like, it's because we're writing a fucking fantasy book or a mythology, you know? We're choosing to go about this. What I generally notice, I should say, is I will sit here and come up with an idea. Jacob will help me. Then we go away and I hone it more. Jacob, all he wants to do is figure out how this can work and try to find limitations in the realm of the book to make this work. So if this is a thing, well then that has to be a thing. Like that part where he's like, he can't be outside the realm. We can't break it. He's the thing that keeps this stable. Because I'm off in the clouds. It's, you know, I think I remember him saying once, like, if you're too in the clouds, then you don't have ground. Well, that's me. I'm groundless. I'm always off. I have no foundation. He is pure foundation. So we act as this yin-yang thing where I'm over here like, now there's centaurs. Now there's this and that. This is going on, that one. He's like, okay. And he has to try to, like, fucking build the foundation to this crazy story. Like, we work as, like, a yin-yang kind of duality thing. Personally, that's the only way I can live in this life. For some reason, I can't do things on my own too well. Like, my wife is literally my polar opposite, so we work so well. Jacob is the foundation and I'm in the sky. That's why we work so well. All my other friend groups, they are kind of my opposite because I think that's what it's about. And so, like, I'm just choosing to write a book with him as well as Kevin. Like, believe me, all that we just discussed, trying to get Kevin to, like, understand what's going on there. I can tell he's just kind of like, you know, whatever, I'll make models. You know what I mean? Not in a mean way. Like, I think he's just kind of like, once you guys figure it out, that's cool. But I don't know. I think he's just like, these guys are crazy. Probably. And so these bakers are, like, neurotic. But that's kind of what I've noticed the difficulty is, right? And so today's writing session, let's go back. I found that hard because, unbeknownst to Jacob, and he's going to roll his fucking eyes a little bit, but I'm introducing a new element to how this all works. He's probably like, I thought you said this was how it works. Yeah, I thought about it and it doesn't make sense to me. So I changed it. And now we're going to have to discuss it again and he's going to have to catch up where he thought he knew about it. It's funny how that can happen. Actually, there was a funny moment as we were talking and we were joking about it here. What I don't know if anyone will ever appreciate, but the one thing I question if they'll ever understand is how long it took to actually create the story. Because, you know, it'd be so funny if someone reads it like, yeah, this is an obvious story. It's like, but you don't know the years of toiling about how this all had to be, how this came to be, you know, all that shit.
You understand how much time we took establishing basic like things other people look at the book and go, yeah, there's a Naku, and then there's the bearded pygmy in small numbers, and there's like 4 races of mankind, and you go, yeah. You say that. For us, that was a 3-year journey.
I know. Why? I don't know why it took this long.
Like, for a while, there was a Naku May, and mankind, and now a Naku May aren't real.
What is an Anakume? To me, a Nakume is I call them the May people. So, like, whenever I mention a Naku, it's May. Like, you know, like, this land is for man and May. That's how I use it. May is just kind. Is man, you know what I mean? So May still exists. You can just call him a Naku. That's like saying man. But a Nakume is like saying mankind. Which is fucking stupid, I know, but that's the point of it. But yeah, there was a difference.
There was. At one point,
a
it was
Nakume might have, I think, was toying with the idea of maybe they're half-breeds.
Right. And
then
Eris was supposed to be one of those half-breeds. He had, like, blue skin.
And I said, they're not allowed. Mankind and Anakume are not allowed to breed. It's infertile.
Fuck.
But a Naku can mix with every other race.
And the whole thing is I had to, like, redo some shit because I was like, Pathfinders are a Nakume. And you're like, a Nakume don't, like, they're just...
I don't know.
I was like, great!
They're an Nakume. That's not a thing anymore.
Okay.
I decided
They're just fucking dudes then.
I decided this last night. Because here's what happens.
Called in the Golden Fields for 3 fucking years. The world doesn't have gold. Cool. It's Orabi now.
Here's what happens. In one context, you give me an idea. I'm like, and it's me. I'm very slow. I'm like, I gotta ponder this for 5 months, and then I just sit. And then when it finally dawns on me, I was like, no, that wouldn't make sense. Because this stuff I didn't realize, and I'll come back to you, and you're like already like, all right, I got the fact.
I got a whole history.
We're already ready to go. I'm like, well, actually, that is not a thing. It doesn't make sense because the Forgotten King is not an Anaku. I
I'm
thought
like,
you said
great, thanks. I'll get right on undoing everything I just did.
How could he? Or like I'm like not quite listening. I'm like, yeah, he's an Anaku. And then like, oh, you say passing. I'm like, wait, no, he's not. How could the Forgotten King be Anaku? He's Aeon.
You're like, you described at some point the Dizurine as like the things that came before mankind. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, so the Forgotten King's a Dizurine? And you went, no. And I went, but Tan's wife is a Dizurine? And you went, yes. And I went, great. Oh, I got it now.
He made both of them. Well, maybe not her. Yeah, that's been a lot.
I've stopped trying to answer those questions and just started making up answers for them so you can look at it and be like, interesting that you think that. And I'm like, yes, it is.
Interesting. It's crazy. It gets to that point where there's so much lore that you can't. I don't know how to explain it. You can't listen to all the little fine details. Like if I tell you what I think the South is, you're gonna be like, 50%'s right.
Yeah.
But the rest is like either me guessing or you realizing that I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
This is another example, isn't it funny? Wasn't that funny? Yeah, man. Those are just a couple things of like why sometimes it's like, why is it taking you so long to do this? Because eventually the story gets to a fucking point where it's so massive. Imagine this. You and someone else are like, let's kind of look at a story within the Greek mythology. That everything the Greeks have ever believed about their gods and the divine. Let's make a story in there. And every time you come to a crossroads, you have to go examine all these other things and defer and deter and discover, or whatever word it is, some fucking aspect you didn't even know about. Like, wait a minute, Hera was that? I thought this was that. And so you have to go back and change a bunch of things. And you try to do something else. And then it's not necessarily a hardcore limitation, but the world building is a major limitation when it comes to the story because it has to act on certain things. Like, if I'm sitting here trying to figure out why this matters or why that matters, I create what I call the high story, which is like the Aeon, the Titans, and all that Forgotten King shit, and the Whisper, and Dove, and, you know, things that you might have heard mention of. That can't not matter. Like, it has to. And then the main character you're writing is like, here's that shit. So he's like all the way down here. He's just a little guy you didn't realize exist. And you're like, he's going to go and figure this all out. It's crazy. It's just hard to keep it all straight. And so, like, today, that chapter I was working on, I was like, I was adding an entirely new fucking door. I'm going to knock this wall out. We're going to build a whole new section over here. Is this right, though? Like, you know, like, does that make sense? Like, if I add this in, is this going to unravel everything that we've done so far? We're like, I thought you said this was that. Now we can't do that. So that's probably, for me, that's just the reason why it can be hard. But whatever. That concludes day 5 writing session. Tomorrow will be a new day, and we'll see what happens then.